What's up everybody, Subaru fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2017 Lexus IS350 all-wheel drive. Huge thanks to Lexus for providing me with this very sleek black Lexus IS here to review for you guys today. So about the 2017 IS, well, it has had a bit of a revision here to just bring it up to date a little bit, make it look a little fresher. And I have to say that with each refresh here, I think that this front end slowly wins me over little by little. I think it actually looks pretty good now. I mean, it's still definitely a love it or hate it kind of styling thing. It's very bold, but I do think it actually looks good personally. It's just very aggressive there in the front end. Now that front bumper is even a little more open and aggressive than before, and looks really, really great. I really like those headlights too, the way they look. Out back there, not too much has changed, but you still have those very cool taillights that kind of slope down into the rear bumper there, and also I think look pretty good overall. And I mean, the car itself actually looks a little bit smaller than some of the competitors. It looks very compact, but very lean and athletic as well. And overall, I think it's a pretty good looking design. As for the interior of the 2017 Lexus IS, well, it's a really cool place to be. The first thing you notice actually before the seats here is this interior is a little less airy and feels a little bit tighter than some of its competitors, but I actually really like that because to me it makes it feel a little sportier. You're cocooned in a little bit more in this cockpit a bit, and overall I actually really like the little extra snugness here with this interior. Anyway, the first things first, sitting down in these seats, very nice and comfortable leather seats here that are heated and cooled here with this luxury package, and so I mean they're really nice. Pretty good bolstering here, although these aren't the F Sport seats. This isn't the F Sport model, so some of the sportier bits that you can get in this interior are not equipped on this one here, but these seats still have a good amount of support here. I wish the bolstering was a little bit beefier, but overall they're pretty comfortable and pretty supportive seats. Next, the steering wheel in the IS350. Again, not quite as sporty as the F Sport steering wheel, but does have a really nice 9-3 grip still, nice 10 and 2 notches, and still a pretty beefy wheel, honestly. A very substantial feeling wheel, and just really feels good in your hands. You have paddle shifters here behind the wheel that are attached to the wheel itself, and then you have a little bit of buttons here on both the left and the right, but not an overabundance, nothing too confusing. It's all very logical, and overall I think it's a really well done and pretty clean looking wheel. Next are the gauges in the IS350, which are very crisp and I guess sleek looking to me. Very minimalistic there, and I like the electroluminescent gauge fonts that you have, and it's a really good looking gauge cluster. Again, the F Sport does have the LFA inspired center mounted talk that slides over and all that fancy stuff, but this one, not being the F Sport, does not have that. But I really like these gauges still, and nonetheless I think they're really attractive to look at. You have a nice center screen there in the middle, which gives you all your basic information, nothing too advanced, but good to have the few basic screens there, and so overall some really great gauges. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, you'll see the main big improvement here for 2017 is this nice large widescreen display, 10.25 inches. So really one of the largest out there currently in this segment, and just looks really great. Very thin bezels for the most part, and a really good looking screen, very high resolution and crisp. And all the graphics and stuff are pretty good. It's still the same basic Lexus Infotainment System, which is decent. Doesn't have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which is really a sore spot for me in modern vehicles, especially luxury vehicles. But other things, the maps and stuff are all run-of-the-mill Lexus maps that really still look okay, but I mean, they don't wow you either. But I do like the split screen layout here, especially with more screen real estate here. You do have a good amount of space to play with, and it's nice to have the audio controls there on the right-hand side and be able to have one view with everything in that one view. And, everything's pretty easy to navigate, although you still have to use this little controller that a lot of people really don't like. I don't think it's awful, but it's certainly certainly not the easiest to use, and takes a little more concentration, I think, than wheels or a touchscreen, obviously. Coming down from the screen, you'll see a very nice analog clock, which is always great to see. And then you have your temperature controls here, and you know, just a few buttons, nothing too confusing there. You do have this slider for your temperature instead of a knob, but it actually is fairly easy to use. You can slide, or you can just hit the top or the bottom and go one by one on your temperature. So that's actually pretty cool and not hard to use. And then coming down to your, you know, volume and tune knobs, it's nice to have both of those, I have to mention. But they really feel great. They actually feel like they're made of ceramic. Very cool feeling knobs there, and so really well done. And all the materials and stuff, and just a little side note here, all the materials in this vehicle feel really premium and luxurious for the most part. I mean, obviously, if you go down to like the lower parts of the doors here, you find some cheap plastic. There's a little bit of cheap plastic in other places, but overall, I mean, it's so luxurious feeling everywhere you look. I mean, I love, you know, the leather on the door. I really love this wood trim, by the way, which has these gold stripes in it. One of the coolest looking, I guess, trim pieces I've seen on luxury vehicles in recent memory. You know, but I mean, even like the hood for the gauge cluster here is padded in leather, and just everywhere you look, it's a nice surface for the most part. So most of the things that you're touching feel high quality, and makes the whole, I guess, cabin feel pretty upscale for the most part. Anyway, though, continuing on down to a few other buttons here. You have your heated and cooled seat controls. You do have that little controller like I was mentioning, and then you have your eco, normal, and sport driving mode selector here, which is also made out of a very nice material and feels great. And so yeah, that's basically it. Not too many buttons, and I think it's very nicely spaced out, and overall the whole interior layout is pretty easy to get used to. As far as storage space in the IS350, it's not its strongest suit. So, you know, in the doors here you have a map pocket and a bottle holder, which is very good, but then coming over to the center, there is no storage here in the center other than your two cup holders that you have here, which are a good size, and then you have the center armrest, which, by the way, though, is super soft and is one of the nicest feeling armrests I've encountered recently, and just really well done there. But anyway, you open that up and you have you know, this cubby area that's a pretty decent size. It's a little narrow though, honestly, and you know, you do find a power outlet, two USB jacks, and an auxiliary jack in there, so good to have all those connections in there, but still not a ton of space in there either. So overall, just I wish there was a couple more places to put things here in this interior, but overall it's you know, I think livable. Of course, you can always put things in the back as well. Speaking of the back seat here in the IS350 is actually larger than you may expect whenever you look at the outside of the vehicle, and it actually is pretty spacious. I'm 5'9", and me sitting behind myself, I still probably have 4 or 5 inches of legroom there to spare, and then I have plenty of headroom as well, and so I mean, a pretty roomy back seat. There aren't too many amenities back there. You just have your 2 air vents, and then you do have a fold down center armrest that has 2 cup holders there, but that's really about it. You know, there isn't any other power outlets or anything like that, but that's still pretty much the going rate here for this segment, and overall really nice back seat. Trunk space in the IS350 is a pretty good size. I'd say it's maybe a hair smaller than some of the other trunks in this segment, but overall it's still a pretty usable trunk. You know, you should be able to fit at least 2 full-size suitcases in there, and you know, overall it's about the going rate here for the segment. All right, so start up and go for a drive. The Lexus here is obviously keyless entry and push button start, and has a nice leather pouch here, so you just leave that in your pocket, hit the engine start button up here, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the 2017 Lexus IS350. Well, the first thing that you'll notice about these whenever you're first driving is that the throttle's a little touchy. Even in normal mode here, throttle response is really sharp, which is actually welcome if you're an enthusiast. But otherwise, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but I think it actually is pretty cool. Other things to note here, visibility is actually quite good. The windshield isn't really too big, but you can see out of it very well. Hood drops down nicely, so you can see forward pretty well. View out of the sides is pretty good. You do have a beefy B-pillar here, but you know, you have blind spot monitoring with your mirrors set up right. You're fine. You know, you can see out of that back window just fine, and view out of the rear window also is really great and nice and large. All right, so let's turn out on this back road here, see how it does. Let's leave it and drive and let it go. All right, you can gets up to speed very well here. So the IS350 has the 3.5 liter V6 engine that has 306 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. And it's really healthy performance. 0 to 60 is 5.7 seconds, and it actually has a good sound to it. You can probably hear that induction note. You don't really hear too much exhaust, or really any exhaust at all, but you get a nice growl from that engine. It actually is really pleasing to the ears. And this transmission is no scaredy cat when it comes to downshifting. It just, you put your foot into it and it gives you all the RPMs you want. So really nice that the transmission is pretty quick-witted. And here in sport mode, it'll even hold gears pretty well and kind of figure out when you're doing some sporty driving here. And so a very intelligent transmission. I learned that even with the GSF. That obviously is a lot higher performing, but that also had a very intelligent automatic. I'm going to try it out in manual mode here and see how this automatic does. Okay, so the shifts aren't bad. It's no ZF8 speed or anything like that. And it's about what I got from the GSF. The GSF I think was a little bit quicker, but about the same as the RC350 that I drove. Leaving it back in drive, let's go around some corners. And it handles pretty good. There's a little bit of lean there, and it's a little softer. Again, this is not the F Sport model. That would certainly be much better, I think, with a firmer suspension setup. And I remember the F Sport version of the RC350 that I had did feel a good amount better around corners, a little bit flatter. But this actually still feels pretty good. I really love just how small it feels. Like I said, it feels pretty small and compact for the most part, and it's really just enjoyable to take around corners because it's very easy to place in your lane because it's, you know, feels pretty small. And you just, like I said, because of this interior, how it also kind of cocoons you a little bit, you really feel like you're in a cockpit, and so it gives you a lot more confidence because going into corners, you just feel like you're a small little thing here and you can just dive right in. Being the all-wheel drive version, there is a little bit of front-end plow. I mean, you can definitely feel the weight. This thing weighs 3,737 pounds in all-wheel drive form here, and so you certainly feel that weight. You know, it's not exactly a backroads carver, I'd say. It does, you know, obviously keep up, and if you do happen to find yourself on a twisty back road like this one, you know, it's not going to really disappoint you, but, you know, certainly not as sharp as some of the other stuff out there. And like I said, you should definitely go for the F Sport package if you value handling and, you know, want something that feels pretty sharp. This does have a pretty decent tire setup, though. I was kind of surprised to see it's two 25s in the front, which is unremarkable, but in the back there you have two 55s, which is kind of cool to have that staggered setup, but it makes sure to keep that rear end always planted here with rear-wheel drive, you know, being able to put that power down whenever you are in that rear-wheel drive mode. And of course, you do still have the front wheels here with the all-wheel drive version to, you know, come in and help you out if you are missing traction for whatever reason. I love how eager this engine and transmission feel. It really makes this whole car feel really eager and excited to, you know, drive fast. But other things you note here about the IS350 is that, especially here in the sport mode, the steering firms up a little bit there and helps it to feel a little sportier. Although it still doesn't feel super sporty, but I think it's okay. It doesn't have to feel super heavy. It's just, it feels pretty good overall as far as the steering goes. Other things to note, like I said, that throttle response is still razor sharp here. And so it just feels awesome. Brakes also feel really good. I mean, obviously not the beefiest things in the world, but I mean, they're plenty to haul this car down to a stop very quickly and feel completely sufficient. Try out this manual shifting a little bit more. Pretty good. Again, it's not the best transmission out there, but it's certainly a lot better than some of these other automatics from other companies. And this thing, the more that I'm putting it around corners, the better it starts to feel. I'm starting to kind of get into a little bit of a rhythm with it here. And I can see how, especially, you put that F Sport package on, which is only like $2,300 or something. You get that firmer variable suspension that should help with increasing, decreasing the body roll and increasing the stiffness of the ride there a little bit to make it feel a little bit more confidence-inspiring going around corners, and then you're set. But even without the F Sport package, this thing is still nothing to scoff off at. It really felt good going through the corners there for the most part. And now putting it back into normal mode here and just cruising behind traffic like most people do on a normal commute, it's a really nice thing to drive. Very luxurious, you know. It's a little more road noise than some of the others, I think, but otherwise, I mean, very smooth, quiet, comfortable ride, and it still does feel very nice here to drive, and especially whenever you turn this sound system on, it gets really nice. This thing has an 835 watt, 15 speaker, 5.1 surround sound stereo system that sounds spectacular. I've already just played around with it a little bit, and it is just a delight to the ears. I mean, I love the way this stereo system sounds. Everything is, all the vocals and everything are so crisp, and just really one of the better stereos that I've encountered here in a while. And so, you know, once you have the radio going, you don't hear anything other than that, and it just makes for a very luxurious driving environment. But yeah, so thanks to Lexus, I have this vehicle for an entire week, so I'm going to drive it around, and I'll come back and give you guys my real-world fuel economy, as well as my final thoughts here on the Lexus IS. Alright, so I've been driving the 2017 Lexus IS350 here for a week now, and I just really enjoy driving this car. I always really enjoy these modern Lexuses. They're just all so nice to drive, and the main reason why I think I really like this so much is how sporty it feels. Even though this isn't the F Sport model or anything, I love the seating position seems a little bit lower than some of the other luxury car vehicles out there, and it just feels a little tighter, a little bit firmer in its suspension setup, and just a little sportier in every way than the average, again, non-sport models of all of its competitors. And I really like that about this. But it's also, that can be kind of a double-edged sword, because you think about this vehicle, you know, this is just a standard IS350, you know, the bigger engine, but this has the luxury package on, all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure that someone who doesn't opt for the F Sport package would want a ride that's this stiff. Now again, it's not uncomfortable or harsh in any kind of way, but it's a little bit sportier. And, you know, someone that just walks into a Lexus dealer and wants the luxury package on the small Lexus here, but with the additional power, I don't know if they're gonna, you know, be turned off by how sporty it actually feels. You know, the non-enthusiasts may not love it, but I think for enthusiasts, it's awesome. I absolutely love it. And I think it's a really, really cool setup, and I think it's a good way to kind of differentiate itself from all the other vehicles out there in the pack. I think everything about this vehicle feels solid. I mean, we know Lexus has a rock solid reliability reputation and service reputation. They're just great to own, it seems. And so, you know, I think that, especially like my wife even owns a Mercedes C300, and this feels a little bit tighter and a little more solid feeling than even that. You know, and so I think this is the one that 10 years from now will still feel about this good. The others, no guarantees, you know. So that's kind of my takeaway with this. Is it feels like a really quality, well-built product, and it's just a really enjoyable thing to drive, especially, like I said, if you are on the sportier side. And you know, everything else about the vehicle is really nice. It's just very refined still. The stereo system is spectacular, like I said, so crisp. And you know, even this infotainment system, after a while you get used to it with this little controller. It's really not that bad. I think it's still pretty good. Still wish, you know, there was some kind of touchscreen setup, but for having a controller, I think that it's totally fine. All the things you use most often are, you know, there are shortcuts for those functions and things like that, so you're not having to play with that controller a whole lot. But the last two things I'm going to talk about are the fuel economy and the price. First is the fuel economy. Now, I drove this primarily in the city, but I did do a couple highway jaunts as well, very briefly. But my final MPG here, over 125 miles of driving, was 17.5 miles per gallon. Now, this vehicle is rated at 19 in the city, 26 on the highway, for a combined average of 21. So it is a 1.5 MPG lower than even the city estimates. It would be nice to at least be able to hit that city mark here, even if I'm doing slightly mixed driving. But, you know, it seems like that's about the average with my driving routes. Every single vehicle I've been reviewing recently, I usually get about 1 to 2 miles per gallon less than the city rating. So, you know, it's just the way it goes. But the last thing is the price of this vehicle. Now, the Lexus, it's really, the IS350 is in a very unique niche where there aren't any direct competitors, because everything that's around this price range that's German, those are all a lot more expensive and have way less horsepower. You know, if you're going money dollar for dollar, they all are much more underpowered. This is definitely the punchiest of the group, you know, at this car's price of $52,000. Now, if you go up to the more expensive, sportier variants of all of its competitors, those are going to be, you know, a good amount more expensive whenever you compare options to options and all that kind of stuff. And a comparable vehicle for those is going to be a lot more expensive. So this kind of occupies an interesting middle ground. So if you want the additional power, you know, and you like the sportier setup here of the IS, that I think is a really good value proposition, actually. And like I said, actually undercuts all the other performance-oriented variants that have over 300 horsepower from the other automakers. So, you know, it's a very compelling case here. I think it's really nice. The only thing I think that undercuts this is the Cadillac ATS, which I haven't driven in standard form, only in the V form. But even in the ATS that I have driven, you know, the materials and stuff, I feel like they're nice, but I feel like this has more higher quality materials, and overall the cabin feels a little bit more upscale than that base Cadillac does. So, you know, just another thing here as far as trying to find competitors for this vehicle. But like I said, there's really not a whole lot. This is kind of in a field of its own here, with a very nice punchy motor and a very luxurious and comfortable interior, all for, you know, a pretty reasonable price, like I said, of around $52,000. So I think Lexus did a very good job overall. The one final little critique that I will say, though, that kind of irked me over my week of driving, is that you can turn off the driver assistance features. So, you know, whenever you're cutting corners around like windy roads, if you're kind of going a little bit onto the shoulder, just cutting it a little bit to hit the apex or something, if you're not having your turn signal on, the lane departure warning will constantly freak out and, you know, vibrate the steering wheel and all that kind of stuff to alert you. And that's great if you're not paying attention, but if you're a driver that pays attention and it's going off needlessly when you know what you're doing, it's just a little annoying. It would be nice if there was an option to turn at least the lane keep part off. You can turn down its sensitivity, but there's no way to completely disable that. And of course, like the forward collision warning and stuff like that, there's no way to turn that stuff off either. But that isn't as obtrusive, and I didn't have any false alarms or anything with the driver safety stuff over the week that I drove it. So that was very good. Just that lane keep assist was a little more annoying than I would like. But anyway, yeah, that's it for all my thoughts here on the Lexus. Like I said, I really did enjoy it overall. It's a really cool vehicle. So let me know your thoughts on the IS350 in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.